Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast today. I have a very special guest. My name is Josh Cook. I write for benswan.com. And, we've been writing extensively on the issue of 9/11, the report that came out, and also regarding the 28 pages that have been classified. Really important information. Former Senator Bob Graham said, and he's been a real patriot in this, really trying to get the word out. And what he said is that this chapter, pretty much the 28 pages, is an entire chapter that's been classified. And this chapter refers primarily to the issue of who financed 9/11, who was behind the hijackers, and it points a very strong finger of suspicion at Saudi Arabia. And also noted that the chapter goes to one of the remaining areas of lack of consensus. That is, did the 19 hijackers operate alone, or did they have support from an external source? Now, the official position of the United States executive, including the intelligence community, the FBI, and the White House, is that they acted alone. But as we know, and as we've followed this may not be the case. I have Congressman Walter Jones from North Carolina on, and sir, it's a pleasure. I appreciate so much what men of faith and men of integrity like you are in Washington, along with Justin Amesh and along with Thomas Massey. You're part of the Liberty Caucus in the Washington. I'm so glad to have you on with us today, and I know our readers and our listeners are really excited that you're on. But I wanted you to give you time to tell us about your bill, the resolution, House Resolution 428, of asking President Obama to declassify the 28 pages. But I wanted to get your sense of, tell us about your experience when you actually read the 28 pages.
Well, first, let me give credit to Senator Bob Graham, who was one of the co-chairs of the Senate House inquiry into 9/11. The House chairman was Portegas, a former CIA director, and those two men have been very outspoken that these 28 pages should be declassified. I do not know why the Bush administration, when this report came out, President Bush was in office, and they had to look at the report, Josh, before they made it public. And they decided that these 28 pages had to be classified. I have read the 28 pages along with Thomas Massey, Stephen Lynch, who's a Democrat, have read the pages. We have put in this new resolution asking the president to keep his promise to the families. The families of the 9/11 tragedy have been calling for this to be declassified ever since the report was made public. And I will tell you that there is no reason, I don't know why the Bush people, I have my own feelings, nothing implying that there was anything illegal, but there were relationships, if you remember, with the Bush administration and the Saudi king. In fact, there's pictures of President Bush holding the king's hand walking down in an area of Crawford, Texas. There's nothing, and I assure your listeners this, there's nothing in the 28 pages about national security, absolutely nothing. It's all about relationships, and whether those relationships participated financially in seeing that 9/11 tragedy became a reality by supporting those people who would intended to do harm. But again, how can a nation, Josh, remain free if the American people don't know the truth about a tragedy like 9/11?
Absolutely. And I actually had a chance to interview a mother who lost a son in one of the towers, and if I could for a minute just read what she told me 2 years ago, and it said, I've been fighting for 12 years to get these pages, and both congressmen have told us that they were shocked to see what was in those pages. I want to see those pages. My son was murdered, and I want to know what happened and what the government knows. We need these 28 pages to help pass Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, Senate Bill 1535, which was introduced in the Senate on September 19, 2013. We believe these 28 pages will say what we've been saying all along. 9/11 families are not going away no matter what Congress thinks or what people think. My son's death certificate says homicide on it. They all do. This was definitely funded. These hijackers were sponsored. My son was a fireman who died in the towers. He was only 32 years old and my only son. He left behind a 2-year-old daughter and a 21-day-old son. I miss him every day. Not a day goes by that I don't miss him. Not an hour goes by that I don't think about him. Congressman Jones, why do you think, and of course you said, quoted, I do not think a nation like America will remain strong if a nation does not demand the truth. Why is President Obama, because he did promise the families of 9/11, why do you think that he's hiding the truth about 9/11, specifically these 28 pages?
If I was in the shoes of President Obama, he has no reason not to declassify this information. If there's any family that would be embarrassed, it could be the Bushes, but why should he care about that? Right. He promised the 9/11 families on 2 separate occasions. These occasions were reported in the print media that he would declassify this information. And we, Stephen Lynch and I, wrote a letter April of 2014 asking the administration to please keep their promise to the 9/11 families and their promise to the American people and declassify this information. To this day, we have not gotten a response. Now, we have made calls, Josh, and we've been told, well, we're looking at the possibility of maybe declassifying, but they have not come to that conclusion yet. I would suggest to your people that you write, and those that are listening to the show, to look on a website called the 28pages.org, O-R-G, 28pages.org, and look at some of the information in addition to what you have been written, that you have written. And there is no reason that this should not be declassified. The families deserve it, and if the American people don't have a right to the truth, then there's no hope for America.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this. Senator Rand Paul, it looks like he's about to announce a run for the president, and we're all excited about that because he's a good liberty candidate. He's standing strong in the Constitution. I was wondering, I know you've talked to him about this, and I was wondering, has he said anything about maybe having a companion bill in the Senate? What's his thoughts on this? I think this would be a great issue for him to run on, because he's for our civil liberties. He's for transparency in government. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Josh, I hope. I had spoken to the chief of staff, I think his name is Henderson, to Senator Paul about 4 weeks ago. I've been working with Senator Bob Graham. I've already mentioned him. He has been very outspoken. He's even filed lawsuits to get this information out to the American people. And Mr. Henderson told me by phone that he would see that Senator Paul and Senator Graham had a conversation. That never happened. I am going to continue to push. I've spoken to Ron Paul about a week ago, and I said, Ron, you know that I am a supporter of your son if he decides to run for the presidency. I said, forget the politics of what I'm saying. The families have a right to this information, whether a person is thinking about running for the presidency or not. That's immaterial in this situation. The pain of these families. And I want Rand Paul to take the lead in the Senate, as you suggested, Josh, simply because it's the right thing to do for the families and the American people.
Now, right now, currently in the House, I would say there's probably 21 sponsors of this. What can the people listening to this and our readers, what can they do to reach out to their own congressman? How can they ask their congressman to become a sponsor of this? Not only that, but why do you think that not more people have signed on to this? What do you think some of the obstacles or some?
Well, in fairness to those who haven't signed on, if they haven't had a chance to read the information, and let me explain that the information, you have to write a letter in the House, and I'm sure it's the same in the Senate, to the chairman and the ranking member, and you ask permission to go down in a classified setting with people watching you to read it. You don't read it, and you don't take any notes, you don't have pens or pads or anything, you just read the information, and somebody's watching you do that. But I've had several several in the House who said, put me on the bill. I don't have to read it. If the families are in that much pain, I want the families to have relief. And so
That's right.
I would hope that with Senator Paul and other senators too, I don't want to just single him out. And if I can give a number, Josh, anybody listening would call this number. It's 202-224-3121. And ask that member of Congress to join the Massey, Jones, and Lynch in the House with their resolution. And again, please go on the website 28pages.org, and you get all the information and additional information of what I've had a chance to say today.
Absolutely.
For me personally, we've done 3 press conferences, Josh, Thomas Massey, Steve Lynch, and myself, with the family members, the families who are still in pain. And actually had one gentleman from New Jersey who actually said in a public forum that the president lied to them if he does not declassify this information. And the man was in pain because his son called him from one of the towers and said, Daddy, I will not see you again. I'm going to die very soon.
I know. You know, and there's litigation. There's litigation right now in the courts. And these families are wanting some type of civil suit. Of course, that's not. Nothing's going to really completely heal the pain. But let me ask you this: say that these 28 pages are declassified. What ramifications? Because if there's a network that's financing terrorism, who's to say that this network is not still intact? That could be activated at any moment. We have we have ISIS, we have Al Qaeda, we have these networks of people funding terrorism, and it's public record that a lot of this is coming out of the Middle East. A lot of it's coming from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar. What are some of the ramifications as far as would it change the way we look at our foreign policy?
Well, I would think so, and I would like to make reference, as I'm giving you an answer, that Moussa, Moussaoui, who's in prison, the title of this article is "Calls Saudi Prince Patrons of Al Qaeda," and I want to read one brief paragraph. This gentleman in prison had a federal judge to come in to listen to his story, and he said, in a highly unusual testimony inside the federal Supermax prison, a former operative for Al Qaeda has described prominent members of Saudi Arabia's royal family as major donors to the terrorist network in the late 90s, and claimed that he discussed a plan to shoot down Air Force One with a Stinger missile with a staff member at the Saudi embassy in Washington. If your listeners will go back, I'll mention one more time, 28pages.org. Also look up Senator Bob Graham, his website, and he at one of the news conferences, we did 3, and he was at one of them, the last one, because his daughter Gwen has just been elected to the House of Representatives in Washington, and Bob Graham said almost the same thing that Moussaoui said to a federal judge.
That's right.
The people need to know the truth, because, how in the world can we have, this was your point, Josh, just a moment ago, how can we have a sound foreign policy when we don't know who our friends are?
That's right. Absolutely, and we will post that along. We'll repost the really good press conferences that you guys been. And I appreciate so much you're fighting, and I know that there was a lot of establishment that try to. I believe they spent 10-1 your last campaign, and and you won. Absolutely, and you won because you represent the people and you stand up for the Constitution. And I know that you're a man of faith, and you're fighting a good fight, and I do appreciate it. And I know our listeners do as well.
Well, it's great to be on your show, and the reason I wanted to be this issue of 28 pages, but also I look to my friends who are conservative and libertarian. We're there to try to save America by protecting the Constitution and the Bible. And it's great to be on your show, and I want to thank you for what you and others are doing to try to keep the American people well informed, because that's one reason I didn't vote for John Boehner. I mean, Josh, you know that our debt right now is over $18.1 trillion. We're headed for a collapse. That's another story at another time. But I really appreciate the interest in the 28 pages.
Well, thanks so much for your fight, and we'll definitely get the word out. And if anything else we can do at benswan.com, I appreciate it. Congressman Walter Jones, thank you so much for your time and being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.